Welcome back to another Hello Warrior podcast. My name is Dennis.
My name is Kristen.
And we have two very special guests with us today that's going to talk about student awards and financial aid. Do you both want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Maureen Jones. I'm the Director of the Student Awards and Financial Aid Office here at the University of Waterloo.
And I'm Brenda Denemy, Manager of Undergraduate Awards.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining us today. And I think we'll get started, Kristen.
I think that's a great idea.
Awesome. So, simple question to start off with. What's kind of the approximate tuition for students? Now, I know this varies on program, but do you mind just kind of speaking about this a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, the program fee for domestic students does range from about $9,000 to $18,000, and that's based on 2 terms. If you're an international student, that fee does change. It's about $48,000 to $71,000. The higher programs at the end would be an example of an engineering program versus arts, science, environment on the lower end.
Do you mind speaking a little bit when tuition is being calculated? I'm going off script, just so when tuition is being calculated, sometimes on the road students will ask me, like, what exactly is tuition? Do you mind just speaking to, like, what is it?
Tuition is actually the cost of the courses. So I think when we take a look at it, you can describe it really as the fees that you're going to be billed are a combination of the tuition based on the number of courses that you're taking.
Right.
There is also the compulsory fees, student service fees, co-op fees, all of that go into the fee bills. Tuition is really one part of all of that.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. And now that we mentioned kind of what it costs to come to the University of Waterloo and study here, what are some different scholarships that students can sort of have access to?
Sure. So at the University of Waterloo, we have a guaranteed scholarship program. It's our Presidents in Merit Scholarships. So these are for students coming into any of our programs. And they start at $1,000 for students with an admission average of between 85 and 89.9%. That's called our Merit Scholarship. For students with an average between 90 and 94.9, it's a $2,000 President's Scholarship. And we also have a level at the 95% plus admission average range. And that is, it's a $2,000 scholarship in year 1, but there's 2 experiential awards that are part of that. So that could bring the value of that scholarship up to $5,000. Now, these scholarships are based on, I mentioned the admission average, and that includes the best 6 U/M courses. We are looking at that in early May, and those best 6 need to include the required courses for the program that student is admitted to.
Perfect. So students don't need to apply for this scholarship?
They do not apply for these. No, these are automatic. We are looking, proactively looking at the grades, at the averages, and making those decisions and notifying students when we have that information, which will be in by mid-May. We will notify students who have been out of province students and international students. We maybe provide that information sooner, but the majority of cases we are announcing that scholarship value in mid-May.
Gotcha.
That's awesome. And do you mind just explaining where the scholarships show up?
Sure, yeah. So all of our scholarship decisions are going to be available to view in Quest. So as part of the, just as you will see admission information in Quest, so too will you see the scholarship and award information. So it'll just be along the same line there, and students will be able to select that link and look at the details of what scholarship they've been offered.
Aside from entrance scholarships, are there other scholarships that students can kind of apply to or require an application?
Sure. There's some of each, actually. And the Presidents in Merit Scholarships that I mentioned a moment ago, those are the sort of across the board. But then each of our faculties and programs has some of their own scholarship and award money that they can assign. We have about 1,200 additional scholarships like this that are offered, values ranging from $1,000 up to $50,000. And so these are sort of linked to the program that the student is admitted to. Majority do not require a separate application. Some do. There are some exceptions. But for the most part, say if it's in the Faculty of Engineering, they are looking at the admission marks combined with comments provided on the admission information form and the interview. In the case of math, there are those same factors, but also looking at the contest scores. And each faculty sort of handles it a little bit differently, and all that detail is, of course, on our website. But these are offered, for the most part, in addition to those Presidents in Merit scholarships that I mentioned earlier. Some do require an application, and our website details that. Quite a number are due April 15th. Of those that require an application. Some are quite specific. So really those details are on the website. There's a couple due a little bit earlier than April 15th, April 11th, I believe. Yeah.
Gotcha. And these scholarships, when did they typically open? Kind of which months?
Oh, they're open now.
Okay.
They are available for students to apply to. We hope students will take a look and not miss out on those opportunities, but they are available now.
For sure. And could you talk also about international scholarships?
For sure. So we do most of our scholarships are actually open to both domestic students and international students. However, we do have some that are specifically for international students, about 170 or so actually. They range in value from $1,000 up to $40,000. Again, most it's automatic consideration, but there are some that require an application. In particular, we have a new set of scholarships offered by our Faculty of Science, and those are due April 15th. Also, Faculty of Math had a set that had a mid-February deadline. So yes, those opportunities are there, and yes, we have some specifically for international students.
Do you find if some scholarships are due, say, April 15th, can a student who hasn't received an offer yet technically apply, thinking if offers go out in May for some programs?
Absolutely. We expect that to happen. You know, the admissions, of course, there's different rounds of it, and there's still many offers that will not be made until May. Offers of admission. And so we do need students to complete those scholarship applications because we have to have an opportunity to review and assess. And our goal is to have these decisions made available and shared with students by mid-May so that they can make an informed decision when they've been offered admission and the scholarships.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you. We heard through the grapevine. That's a poor transition. Cut that. But there's some really exciting new scholarships for Black students that we've heard a bit of details about. Do you mind just speaking to those?
Sure. We actually have a set of scholarships for Black students as well as for Indigenous students. And they do require a separate application. There's information that we can't pull from the regular admission process. So we do need students to complete those forms. They are both due April 15th. And when students go to those application forms, they'll see that there is a series of awards that some donor funded, some faculty funded, but some really great opportunities there. And we really encourage students to take a look at those. There'll be some questions as part of that application process to help make our decisions. But we have a growing number of these, in fact. So we really do encourage students to take a look.
That's very exciting.
Awesome. I think we'll shift topics a little bit from scholarships and now talk a little bit about when do first year students need to pay their first term expenses. So kind of what period does this take place?
Usually the fee bill is posted to Quest for the fall term, maybe the third week of July.
Okay.
And so that will include tuition, compulsory fees, and if the student is in majority of the residents will also bill for the first term as well. And if it's a meal plan, it'll be included there. So that one bill will include absolutely everything. Fees are due by the middle of August. And so students are either paying the fees themselves or they're using their OSAP or their scholarships or they're out of province to submit a promissory note to say, when I get access to this money, it will go towards my fees. So it always is before the term. And so you could do the same thing with winter. It'll be posted in November with a mid-December due date. And then again, same thing for the spring term.
Perfect. And then those students would be considered fees arranged.
Yes. Once all of that got through and they had sufficient funds, either with their anticipated aid or they may have to make a balance payment. But if they are able to take the total amount of their billed with the total amount of resources available, then they're considered fees arranged and registered for the term.
Awesome. I like that you mentioned OSAP, so that's kind of where I think we're going to transition to now.
Okay.
When do students typically apply for OSAP? And any sort of information you can give about the OSAP process to new incoming first-year students?
Sure. The OSAP application, they run a fiscal year from September through to August. So the application form for 24-25 should be available in mid-May.
Okay.
Students should be applying for the school they intend to go to, but we do encourage, if you haven't heard yet, you can also complete 2 applications. Maybe because one OSAP application is for Waterloo, where you live and will be living at home, and the other one is considering going to Queens, living away from home, and so it will give you a proper assessment and give you an idea of what you can expect in either scenario. But mid-May is usually when that is available.
Awesome.
I never know whether to look at you or that.
Both. Usually we'll just do
Okay.
towards us.
Sorry, not that. I didn't mind the camera, not you.
No, that's fair. It's
Okay.
awkward for all of us.
No,
so don't
yeah.
worry.
Okay, all right. I wasn't certain where I should be looking. Sorry.
Okay, so I just think general timeline, just to recap what we've talked about so far. So let's say I'm a student, I'm applying for this coming year.
Mhm.
And so if I'm keeping an eye on scholarships, give that April ideas when, say, some are due. And then once maybe I get an offer, say I get an offer at the end of April, then I can even start to look into OSAP if it opens, say, mid-May,
Mhm.
expecting to, say, pay fees by mid-August.
Yeah.
And you're only ever paying typically in these 4-month, like by term, you're not expected to
Correct.
pay tuition for a year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I did actually read, you can keep this in or not, that housing has actually changed their billing, so now it's an equal billing
Oh, that's good.
in each of the 2 terms. It used
Yeah.
to be a fall higher, second term lower, and now housing has actually moved to a equal billing, which makes it a little easier for students and their parents to
Yeah.
come up with that as well. The other thing we haven't mentioned yet is entrance bursary.
Mhm.
And it is something that has a deadline as well, middle of April. We like that date.
Perfect.
But it also is that if you intend to apply for OSAP assistance, then you should look at the entrance bursary. It's open now, and the application deadline is the 15th of April,
Okay.
so that we can look at it, make a decision, and send it out, as Brenda said, with the offer of admission if we haven't made it yet,
Right.
and scholarship, so that it all goes out at once.
Right. And for students who maybe aren't aware, what are bursaries and how much in value do we give for bursaries?
The bursaries for the entrance bursary, which is just for Ontario students incoming in their first year, value between $1,000 and $5,000 for the first year. It is based on family income, family size, how many in the family size, how many at post-secondary, and then where you're living. Are you at home or away from home? So that all makes the difference. There are also general University of Waterloo bursaries you can apply for when you're here, and they range up to a maximum of $7,000 per term. And it really depends on the program and the financial resources. So a bursary is something that is based on financial need that you don't have to pay back.
Right. And that's the key. You don't have to pay back.
Right.
It's not a loan.
It's
Exactly.
not a loan. The OSAP has grants and loans.
Right.
Grants you don't have to pay back.
Right.
The loans you do.
What are some ways that students could start thinking about helping with the cost of education? And what are some things that students can do while they're in high school to help pay for the cost?
A couple of things. I think if they've got a part-time job, one of the suggestions we make is to portion out that amount they receive every week or 2 weeks. You can take half of it, you can take a third of it, whatever, and just park that.
Right.
And so if they've got a part-time job during high school, they can continuously save, and you can have fun with the remainder of it. I think to take a look at scholarship opportunities and things that they may be aware through that part-time job or their parents' place of employment, because there are often a number of employee-dependent scholarships that we receive money for to apply to the student's account, but it's something that they have taken a look at and organized themselves. It's not something through the university, so that's something to take a look at. I think one of the important things is to talk to your parents, talk to mom or dad, both, about the plans, what you want, what are the resources available, do they have RESPs, this is the program, this is how much it's going to cost, how much can I count on? OSAP has an estimator, so you can do that ahead of time, see how much. But it's creating the budget, figuring out what your costs are, and plunking in those various resources from various places. And I've mentioned before, there's an organization called Higher Ed Points, where you can transfer in Aeroplan points or your TD Travel Rewards points towards tuition fees, and Waterloo is one of those participating institutions. So sometimes it comes from very different places as well.
Yeah.
Line of credit, there's a student line of credit that you could look at with your bank, but that's something probably your parents would have to co-sign. To me, that's kind of something that you've got in your back pocket, or if you've got it and you've exhausted all other things. But do your research. Take a look at what the school offers, what's available, and apply for as much as you can.
I had no clue about the Aeroplan points. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. You can also use it to repay student loans as well.
Oh.
The OSAP government is signed on to it as well.
That's crazy.
Very smart.
That's awesome.
Yeah, wish I would have known that. Yeah, thank you. I think those were some really good tips for high school students when you're looking into coming in. And we always talk about when you're on campus, if you're interested in applying and are admitted into a co-op program, sometimes those fees, like when you're earning your wage through co-op, you can then help pay off as well, which I think is pretty useful. One common question I have, because I think students often we get peppered with these on the road, when you are in a co-op work term or you're about to go on a co-op work term, do you pay tuition for that term?
No. Traditionally, a work term would not have any tuition fees applied to it. However, students often take a course while on a work term. So that's the amount that would be billed.
Right.
And just for, if you weren't aware, you can also apply for OSAP assistance, and certainly assistance if your home province is Alberta, for OSAP assistance while on a work term.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Not just for school terms.
Interesting.
Awesome. Perfect. And then I think you already mentioned some really good, helpful tips that high school students can also can start doing. And we talked about that co-op element. So there's really a lot of different avenues that students can kind of go into to help with the cost of education. So I think that's super helpful. And that communication piece that you talked about is key. You know, talking to your parents and making sure it's an open conversation. So that's perfect. Kristen, did you have anything else before we go on to student questions?
No, I think I've thrown you enough curveballs. So.
Awesome. So we do have some student questions that students have submitted to our landing page on the Hello Warrior website. So we'll pick through some of those. And starting with number 1, can you use multiple scholarships at once to pay for tuition?
Yes, you can. So often students come to Waterloo, they've won a scholarship at Waterloo. Maybe they've also received scholarships externally, as Maureen mentioned. Maybe it was an employee dependent program. Maybe it was something that the student applied to externally and they have won that award. So certainly any of the financial aid, including scholarships or bursaries that the student has for a given term, can be used to help fund that term's tuition. And if there is excess money, that can happen too, then that money will be refunded back to the student to use for their other educational expenses, or maybe to save up for a next term of tuition. So for sure, many of our students receive more than one source of scholarship or bursary at Waterloo.
Awesome. That's exciting. The idea to think you could come to school with more money than you need. That would be great for all of us and all of our lives. But lastly, a question we commonly get, and actually the Waterloo website that you'll mention, I know it does a really fantastic job of this, but places to find scholarships, websites, or good sources that you would recommend.
Sure. I would recommend looking at in your guidance office, look at service organizations in your community. I would suggest some online databases, websites. So there's scholarshipscanada.com, there's wyconic.com, there's universitiescanada.com. These are all, some of them are databases. Universities Canada is an organization that provides services to universities, but also to students. They would have different external scholarships. Maybe a company has gone to them to say, we have this money, can you administer it for us? So then students would apply through them. So different websites to do some searching. And students do have to realize that it does require some searching and some reading and some sorting through to see what really applies to them. And also we have our own database.
Right.
Waterloo has a database for entrance awards. And as I mentioned before, many do not require an application. In fact, most do not require an application, but some do. And so you can go onto our database and search by that criteria of what does require an application and filter through to see what applies to them.
I think the takeaway there is that it's worth the time and energy if you need financial assistance, even if you don't, but why wouldn't you want scholarships, say, to help you pay? So it's worth the time investment to do some searching.
For sure.
And I think my takeaway as a student is I wish I would have learned that sooner, that it's worth the time myself. But
Yeah, even from my experience, there's so many scholarships out there, and they're kind of maybe just sitting around. Maybe not a lot of people ever are applying to them, or maybe a lot of people don't even know about them. So even just taking the time to search for them, maybe do an application or just submit something super quick. You don't really know what could happen, but your chances are always better than nothing. So perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you both, Maureen and Brenda, for joining us today on our podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It was great, and I think the students they're going to have a lot of great info about student awards and financial services. So that's good. And then if you have any questions that you want to get featured on our future podcast, please submit them to our Hello Warrior webpage, and then you'll be able to get featured on our podcast as well. You'll be entered for a giveaway, so you'll get some kind of Waterloo merch. So that's always a benefit as well. But until next time, we'll see you on the next episode. See you soon, Future Warriors.